Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another highly requested video. You want me to react to Josh's video. Josh is putting unbelievable content out and you guys are enjoying me reacting to it. I think because it's all these like what ifs and it's a really great conversation to have. Why are you being so loud? Shh. Can you hear that? I'm sorry. Also, life is lifing really hard at the moment, guys. I'm not going to lie. I'm not here to be like, oh, me, but I think you can see it in my eyes. Life is just pretty savage at the moment. We've just had to bring our wedding forward by 8 months. And obviously life is lifing. You can see a gist of it behind me. So just please bear with me. Like I'm holding on. It's like I'm holding on for dear life. I'm Jack on that piece of wood in the Titanic. That is me right now. So I should be watching Space 1999. Am I? No. I thought, what else am I going to watch when I'm in this mood? There's only one person that can help me, aside from John Pertwee, and that's Mr. Jamie McCrimmon. So that's what I'm here to find out. What was the original exit? Well, that sound is being very obnoxious now. It's testing my last nerve. Okay, so bearing in mind I've only watched the classic era once, I am currently rewatching it with my fiance who is watching it for the first time. If you are interested at all, we are still only on the Keys of Marinus, but hey, life is lifing. And I'm gonna hold my hands up. I don't think the War Games is like one of my favourites. Whether that's down to how long it is or whether that's down to the kind of story it is, I'm not sure. I don't remember all that much of the War Games. So I'm interested to see kind of what the alternative option could have been. I really, really love Josh's videos on these what ifs. I think it's such a good idea. I love having discussions about Doctor Who. I really love positive discussions about Doctor Who. I love like what ifs. I love, you know, there must have been so many ideas for every single companion and the brig and unit that never came into fruition. And to be able to sit with friends and talk about it is amazing while supporting Josh's channel. That was a mouthful. Let's find out. Let's put some Jamie on. It always cheers me up.
Second Doctor companion, Jamie McCrimmon, is one of the most beloved characters in Doctor Who's
Absolutely.
history. Appearing in almost all of Patrick Troughton's stories, it's difficult to imagine the Second Doctor without Jamie by his side.
They're a duo, aren't they?
However, Fraser Hines originally planned to leave the series earlier than he ultimately did, and he would have received his own departure story. Today, we'll explore the unmade story, The Laird of McCrimmon, and how the Yeti almost made a return.
Oh no.
Fraser Hines initially planned to leave Doctor Who midway through season 6. His agent was pressuring him to leave, fearing that he would become typecast. Upon hearing this, Patrick Troughton convinced Fraser Hines to stay a few more months, as he was also planning to exit at the end of season 6. In an interview with Sci-Fi Now in 2018, Hines said, "We didn't want to leave. I still say if my agent hadn't been nagging me and his wife, we'd still be there now. You'd have to shoot us to get us out of the TARDIS. You would have never have heard of David Tennant or Christopher Eccleston because we'd still be there. We were having such a ball."
Oh.
Before Hines was convinced to stay, a few different departure storylines were considered.
Right.
The most commonly discussed concept was The Laird of McCrimmon, a script penned by Mervyn Haseman and Henry Lincoln. Haseman and Lincoln are a writing duo, best known for writing The Abominable Snowmen and The Web of Fear, which introduced the Yeti and the Great Intelligence. They are also credited with creating Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart, and their final writing contribution to Doctor Who was the 1968 story, The Dominators.
Okay.
The Laird of McCrimmon would have marked the third appearance of the Yeti and the ominous Great Intelligence. This story was initially outlined when Victoria was the current companion. However, for the purposes of this discussion, we will assume that Zoe would have been in her place, as she would have been the companion at the time the story would have been produced. used. The Doctor and his travelling companions are in the TARDIS when Jamie is possessed by a mysterious force. He pilots the TARDIS to Scotland, 1746, back to his home at Castle McCrimmon. The current Laird, James McCrimmon, is dying, and Jamie is next in line to inherit the title. Things take a sinister turn when Zoe notices that the sheep surrounding the castle are actually Yeti in disguise. The Great Intelligence has returned, seeking to take control of Jamie's body in order to seize power over Castle McCrimmon after Sir James's death. Jamie, uncertain about whether he is ready to leave the TARDIS, meets Fiona and instantly falls in love with her. As the Intelligence begins possessing the bodies of local villagers, the Doctor discovers that the mother of Jamie's new love interest, Fiona, is the vessel for the Great Intelligence. The Doctor and his companions manage to defeat the Intelligence once again, but Jamie ultimately decides to remain at Castle McCrimmon. Although the Laird of McCrimmon was considered when Hines first discussed leaving, it was never developed into a script, nor was it formally commissioned. The biggest obstacle to this story's production stemmed from a rights dispute between Haseman and Lincoln versus the BBC over the copyright of the Quarks. In July 1968, Haseman and Lincoln sought to merchandise the Quarks, hoping to replicate the success of Terry Nation's Daleks. They contacted a merchandiser, Walter Tuckwell, the same person Terry Nation approached for the Daleks. But when the BBC learnt of this, tensions arose. Eventually, this culminated in a meeting between Haseman and Lincoln and the BBC Copyright Department, where the details were hashed out. Haseman and Lincoln claimed that they sketched out the design for the Quark, but the BBC designer claimed that they never saw
famed
the
artist,
sketch.
Josh.
Many different deals were sent back and forth between the two parties, but it's unsure exactly how the deal ended. What we do know is that the two writers never worked on Doctor Who again.
Dun dun dun.
And thankfully, the licensed use of the Brigadier was established before this debacle.
Could you imagine?
Another story considered for Jamie's departure was The Prison in Space, a script developed that initially included a new companion named Nick. The Seeds of Death was also originally written with Nick in mind. However, when Hines chose to remain for the rest of season 6, The Prison in Space had to be rewritten to restore Jamie and remove Nick. After numerous rewrites, writer Dick Sharples requested additional payment for his work, but their production team was dissatisfied.
Who would have played
with the scripts
Nick?
and ultimately scrapped the story. The Prisoner in Space was eventually adapted by Big Finish Productions.
Oh yeah, I like that title.
Richard Bignell, a researcher and expert on Doctor Who's archive, speculated that, timing-wise, this ties in with the general thought that season 6 might have ended with the Laird of McCrimmon, as the abandonment of prison and the temporary extension for Jamie would have pretty much tied in with their disputes with the BBC. So they may well have hoped that once resolved, work on Laird might progress. It didn't work out that way. Haseman and Lincoln didn't want to work with the BBC, and the production office didn't want to work with them.
I wonder what
Even
happened to their
this day,
careers.
The BBC are still having rights issues over who owns what. When most of the classic era was added to iPlayer, An Unearthly Child was absent. This was due to writer Anthony Coburn's estate withdrawing licensing rights over disagreements over compensation. Terror of the Zygons and The Seeds of Doom were also taken down recently due to rights issues. This is an important reminder why home media is so important. You own nothing when you pay for a streaming service. But before I go into a 10-hour discussion about how we're possibly entering a new age of lost media due to streaming services...
Wait, so Terror of the Zygons isn't on there anymore?
Let's go back to talking about Yetis. Although the Yeti never returned to the main series, they were seen one last time in the licensed fan production Downtime.
Oh yeah, of course.
Which acted as a third in the Yeti trilogy. It featured many familiar faces, such as Nicholas Courtney as the Brigadier, Deborah Watling as Victoria Waterfield, and Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith. And it even saw the return of Jack Watling playing Professor Travers. Its production value feels somewhat close to a Seventh Doctor story also, so it doesn't feel too out of place. It's definitely worth a watch in my opinion.
Yeah.
But in the new series, the Great Intelligent did return, just without the Yeti. The character appeared in The Snowman and subsequent 11th Doctor episodes. I think the most baffling part about these future sequels is that they're following up stories that are mostly missing from the BBC's archive. The Abominable Snowman has only episode 2 surviving, and The Web of Fear is missing episode 3. During the production of Downtime, only episode 1 of The Web of Fear existed. It's just so strange to me. But it shows the power of these stories, that their myth alone is exciting and spooky enough to warrant a revisit. Bowing out alongside his 2 co-stars, Patrick Troughton and Wendy Padbury. Hines said in an interview in 2005 that, "We knew we were leaving, the 3 of us, but it wasn't Mortland. It was still the same happy, jokey atmosphere, and I can't recall even when we finished the last scene in studio, I don't remember us all bursting into tears, which is strange when you've had 3 happy years. The strange thing is, we didn't see each other after that. I saw Pat a couple times, then I did Emmerdale, and there I was up in Yorkshire. So I don't recall us walking out of the studio with a heavy heart going, that's it. It's the end of an era." The War Games was also given a recut, colorised edition in 2024. Fraser Hines also returned to Doctor Who for a brief cameo in The 5 Doctors, and then in a larger capacity in The 2 Doctors, alongside Colin Baker and Nicola Bryant. He appeared in many Big Finish productions, and also returned to our screens in Tales of the TARDIS. If you haven't seen Fraser and Wendy's reunion in Tales of the TARDIS, it really is a joy to watch. Their characters get their memories of the Doctor returned to them all those years later, and it's really heartwarming. When thinking of the Laird of McCrimmon, I have mixed feelings. On the positive side, it would have been nice to see the Great Intelligence return again, since I think they're such an effective villain. And I just love the Yeti. They're a perfect blend of cute and scary. But on the negative side, this departure of having Jamie fall in love with someone he just met, whilst being incredibly in character for him, is just not a very exciting departure for him. Especially throughout the classic era, we are plagued with companion departures being they've just met someone and fell in love and off they go.
That's so
and I just
true.
don't think it's the best way of saying goodbye to a companion we love so deeply. Also, the ending in the War Games for Jamie and Zoe is one of the most heartbreaking departures from Doctor Who. And I can't imagine this initial story being as powerful. So, what do you think of the Laird of McCrimmon? Would you have preferred this to be made over the War Games? Or would you like to see it being adapted as a Big Finish alternative what-if story? Let me know in the comments section below. Okay. Don't forget to click below.
I'm just trying to think off the top of my head if I enjoyed the Yeti stories, because I honestly can't remember. Thinking about it, I feel quite impartial to the Yeti. Like I don't feel anything towards them. And the idea of Yeti sheep, or sheep that are actually Yeti, I don't know if that works. And I also don't know if that would have worked in a 1960s capacity. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like that may have just looked not that great. It may have had like a good idea behind it, but I don't know if it would have been pulled off the way they would have wanted it to. So I'm actually, never thought I'd say this, quite glad that they didn't do that. When I was talking about the War Games, I mean I didn't like the War Games up until that story when they all leave. I love and hate that episode. But I think it was so powerful that all 3 of them left at the same time. I think it really gave it such a definitive end to the Second Doctor era, and I think that's also why I really struggled going into the Third Doctor era, because everything felt different, and it was in colour, and I just remember thinking, whoa, this is too much. So actually I'm really glad they did it the way they did. I think this idea of losing your memory, particularly when Jamie was so close to the Doctor. I think that's heartbreaking, and they pulled it off really well. So as much as it's heartbreaking, my only criticism is I don't fully like the way they did the second Doctor regeneration, because obviously it just felt quite, it didn't feel like we really had one, because obviously he was just pulling, all those faces were happening. I kind of wish that we'd had, do I? Because then he would have been on his own. Maybe I kind of wish we'd have had a bit more of a regeneration with the second Doctor, but then I guess they were trying to keep it a little bit in line with maybe this second Doctor being a bit more like the funny side, a bit more silly. Maybe they didn't want to do a sentimental regeneration because maybe they just didn't think that applied. I don't know. You'll have to let me know your thoughts about that, because I think that was my only, I just remember watching it and thinking, I remember the episode ending and just thinking, right, so the second Doctor's gone. And I don't remember really crying, because I just thought that was a really random, like, goodbye to the second Doctor. But I absolutely love the second Doctor. If his regeneration had been like the third Doctor's, I would have been in bits. So I don't know if I would have wanted a different regeneration, but I like what they did with Jamie and Zoe, and like I said, I like that they did them all together. I also completely agree with Josh that the idea of Jamie leaving because he's just fallen in love, when we're talking about Jamie McCrimmon being the biggest flirt on the planet, would not have satisfied me. Like, we've had it before. It's a very boring concept, I think. I think it's a really unimaginative way for a companion to leave. I think it's just a bit like, oh, could they not think of anything else? So in that regard, I'm also very happy it didn't happen. And I'm just not sure how I feel about Yeti sheep. It doesn't, I don't feel excited by the concept of Yeti sheep, but you guys will have to let me know, because I know the War Games is really, really loved. And maybe on second watch, I will love it even more. And maybe in colour, I will enjoy it a bit more. Who knows? And are we saying that Terror of the Zygons and the other one is not on BBC? That's annoying. This whole licensing thing, very, very annoying. But yeah, let me know your thoughts about Yeti sheep. Let me know your thoughts about second Doctor regeneration. I know this isn't what this is about, but now we're here having a chat. Let's talk about it. And yeah, if you haven't checked out Josh's channel, I will leave their channel below. Unbelievable work. So thanks, Josh. And I will see you all very soon for my next reaction.